Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Scott and this is Grassroots NASCAR Racing. So today we're going to be doing a little comparison video. I've always wanted to do this, but I never really had the right cars to do it, but I finally have the right cars. Now as you can see behind me, this is a Kyle Petty show car, this is a Kyle Petty race car. So I want to do a comparison today where we compare and contrast and I show you some of the differences, because I know when a lot of you are out there looking at buying a car, you might not know what to look for, and there's always a lot of questions. So I'm going to show you some of the obvious differences that kind of jump out a lot of times. And these won't apply to everything, because obviously the newer cars, they did different things as the cars aged. And I'll give you a couple pointers on some of the newer cars too, like the Gen 5s and stuff like that, Gen 6s. But we're going to be looking at these today. So this is a 1991, this is a 1992. They're both beautiful cars, obviously, and this one's going to be leaving soon. It's up on Bring a Trailer right now. It ends tomorrow, so I don't know how much longer this one is going to be here, but that's why I wanted to shoot this video today. So but they're amazing cars and they both do wonderful things in their own right. This one is a great car. It just might not be the best car if you're wanting to go out and do actual vintage racing, competitive racing. This might not be the best car. Woo. But it can be. I've had this car out on North Wilkesboro, Rockingham, and had an absolute blast with it. It is so fun. It's a great car. But this is a purpose-built race car. If you're wanting to do some actual vintage racing, this is probably what you want to get. So they're just two different animals, and today we're going to go through them and just point out some of the differences and hopefully educate you guys, so that if you're ever in the market for a car, you know what to look for. So let's dig in. Hey everybody, do me a favor real quick before we dig into this video. Hit that subscribe button down in the corner. It'll really help me out, grows the channel, and it's free. Thank you. All right, so let's take a look at the exterior first, because that's where you're going to notice some of the immediate things. Now, most of the show cars you're going to find were actually raced at some point. Generally the chassis, maybe not the body, but the chassis was probably raced at some point. So even if it is a show car, it could have good history to it, and you're gonna have to do some research to figure that out. But it is probably a retired race car. Might not be the body from a retired race car like this one, but the chassis itself was raced at one time. So some of the more obvious things, when you look at this one, the things that jump out at me now I didn't recognize a lot of this stuff when I first bought it. There were a few things that jumped out at me then, but I was kind of a newbie at the time. You know, this was the first race car that I ever bought, and I didn't know a lot. I know a lot more now. So these vents down here, those are not correct. I think that these were added at a later time. If you look at pictures of Kyle Petty's actual race cars from like 1991, they put the vents up inside here. They would cut out like right there and put a vent down inside there, not up front like this. So you can see on this one, they've also got a lot more. Now this one has like the factory little plastic inserts behind it. Like this one says Pontiac, you can see right there. And then I put the screen over it just to make it look better, but they wouldn't do that here. And, well, I shouldn't say they wouldn't do it. I've seen where they have done it, but generally you're going to have more of a prepared front end like this. Multiple vents, custom screens covering everything. You know, it's going to be a little bit more race prepared than this. Show cars generally have a very basic front end usually. We'll go over here. If you notice this strip right here behind the hood and in front of the windshield, notice how this one is built into the car. This is all one solid piece. So it just goes right up and all the way across and all the way to the other side. That's a show car thing. A race car would not have that. A race car, these pieces are made to be taken out. So you just take a screwdriver, pop those, pop, 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 pop them all. You can take this a separate piece, this is a separate piece, and that's a separate piece. They do that so when you're changing the engine and everything, it's a lot easier to get to stuff, because right back here is your distributor. So if you need to change the distributor, you want to be able to pull this out and get to stuff. You know, it's just it's just access. It's getting access to stuff. Another thing that you'll find, notice this one has no roof rails. No roof rails. It should have them. And actually this car, let me look up in here. Yeah, see, you can see where they were, right there, right there. You can see where they were, but when this car got converted, they just weren't put back on. I don't know why. But a race car should have roof rails like these. Just an aluminum strip that runs down. And if I remember right, this cut is for the templates. Can you guys confirm that for me? If you know for sure, comment down below. I believe that's where the template would fit across the body. Right there and right there. So, another thing you'll see on a race car is an antenna. So there should be an antenna that screws on right here and sticks up. Show car does not have that. And again, this doesn't apply to every car out there. Every show car is different depending on how the teams made them. Another thing you might see that I've seen a lot is these windows right here. So generally your oil tank is right behind here, right behind the driver's seat. So there's your driver's seat. There's your oil tank right inside there. Generally you want to be able to take out this window so that you can easily access the oil tank. But on a show car, notice this one is riveted in. You cannot take this window out. So every time I've had to access that oil tank, I either take out the seat or I just climb into the other side and do it from that way. It's kind of a pain, but yeah, show car, you generally can't remove those. Race car, these windows are all made to be taken out. Take a screwdriver, twist those, and the whole window just pops out. So those are kind of a few key things that you want to look for on the outside as to whether it's a show car or a race car. Now in some of the later cars, when you get up to like the Gen 5s, that's when they started using a lot of fiberglass bodies for show cars because they wanted them to be more durable. They could cart them around all season to the tracks and they wouldn't get dented, you know. They might get a little scratch, but they can repair that, but they don't want to fix dents. So they would use fiberglass bodies, and actually I'll show you one right here. I have a show car piece right up here. All right, see that? That is a show car side. It's one of the few show car pieces I have, but this is fiberglass. See? It's just a big fiberglass panel. So that's what they have made the show cars out of for the Gen 5s. Now the Gen 6s, some of them, it just depends. Like that Camaro that I had recently, that was being used as a show car, but that was a retired race car. Like it was still pretty much all race car, and they just kind of dropped it down to show car status. So you just never know. So, but I'm trying to give you some pointers on things to look for. Let's look at a few others. Now, if you look inside, so this is again is a Kyle Petty show car. Notice how the switch panel is just a basic switch panel. Black, no writing. It might have other writing on it, but it might be like a race car parts manufacturer. It might not say like Sabco Racing or something like that. But see, like this one, Sabco Racing, chassis number 15, and everything's labeled. And it also, you'll notice, over here, you just have one box. So in a show car, they might just put one box and that's it, because that's all you need. You know, you're not on a racetrack and You know, if you have a problem with an ignition and you need to switch over to a secondary, you don't need that. This is a show car. So we have one box in here, and I believe one coil. Yeah, it's underneath here. One coil. That's it. Whereas on a race car, most race cars, there's a box here and there's one on the back side. So you have two boxes, 1 and 2, and then over here, 2 coils, 1 and 2. Notice on the dash here, you have a switch for 1 and 2, and also over on that side as well. But that way, if something happens, if you're in the race and something goes wrong and it's not working right, you can switch over from 1 to 2 and keep going. So that's a big difference. And also notice, like these, you can take these out. Pop, pop, pop. Whereas this, rivets. Now granted, I put this one in. But I did it show car style. I didn't do it race car style because I know it doesn't need to be removed. So, also, if you notice, look inside here. So see this panel inside? So this is the A pillar right here. On the inside of the A pillar, notice how it's solid? And on the race car, see how they have the holes? You'll notice that on all the race cars. They put holes there. Same with, see that panel right there on the passenger side? This panel right here? Sometimes you won't even have that. Sometimes you have it and it's solid. But if you notice, sorry, I'm walking back and forth, but see that one? Same thing, holes. And notice how that piece is painted back there? And you're also just gonna have a lot more vents, like a lot more. Sometimes you'll have the NACA ducts, sometimes you'll have these, but you'll have a lot more of these on a race car than a show car. So mine only has the one right there in that window. This one has them on this side, has them on that side. And also that car, when I got it, I don't think it had, did it have that? I can't remember if it had that. I think I just drilled those recently, actually. Yeah, I don't think it had that when I got this car. I drilled that and then I put the tape around it. But a race car is going to have that because you have to be able to adjust that during the race, right? So you have the tube that goes all the way down. So those are just a few differences. There's one other one that I want to show you. Well, you know what? Let's pop the hoods, actually. Take a look under there. All right, so under the hood, you'll notice a few differences as well. So actually, let's start over here on the show car. With the show car, basically what they used to do is they would take just a crate engine from GM, and that's what this is. This is just a crate engine. It's not a race engine, but they dress them up to kind of look the part. So when the hood is open, it looks good. You know, they still, like this one is still a dry sump. You can have your oil lines going down to your oil pump. So it looks the part, but it doesn't have the same power. And one of the things that I've always noticed, like between these engines and race engines, look at the valve covers. Notice how this valve cover has nothing on it. It's just a plain old valve cover. But when you look at a race engine like this, look at the valve covers and notice this. See right there? And on the other side it has that too. Those are oilers. You can see it right there on the corner. So that helps to shoot oil in there and just keep everything nice and cool and lubricated. Every race engine I've had has that. Every show car engine does not. So that's one thing that might stick out to you. But they usually do a pretty good job, especially like the Gen 5s and stuff. They'll do a pretty good job of making it look correct. So, but I will show you one other thing underneath the cars, but I gotta go get my jack for that. So let me go do that. All right guys, so I'm going to show you underneath the cars, because there's one thing that these two cars have different, and it's something that you'll notice with a show car and a race car, because a lot of times they're not going to prep a show car the same way that they would prep a race car. It doesn't need all the same parts, especially parts that aren't visible to people who are walking around the car at a grocery store or a gas station or something like that. So let's go underneath. We're going to look underneath the rear right here. Now see right there? It's just the drive shaft going into the rear end. That's it. That's all they need to make the show car go. So it's nothing too fancy. As long as it makes the car move, work, it doesn't need to be race car, but it still looks good. And for what I've used this car for, I don't need the rear end cooler and stuff like that. I'm only going out for 10 or 15 minutes maybe at 70-80% on an oval. It doesn't get crazy hot and stuff like that. But let's look at the other one. All right, let's dive under this one. This one's a little bit different, so we can check that out. All right, so notice under this one, a little bit different. You got the pump on the rear end, all your hoses. There's definitely a lot more going on a race car. So that's something else that you can kind of look for. Get underneath if you can see underneath, and just check it out. Let me look back here too. You can kind of see it a little better back here. See that? Pretty cool, man. It's neat stuff. Woo! Yes, and I know I didn't get under, well, I got under it just a little. Right now I've got the Thunderbird up on all of my jack stands, so just jacking it up with that. Let's go back down. There we go. But they're such beautiful cars, you know. Really, it doesn't matter. It's what makes you happy and what you're gonna do with it. For years, that car has made me so happy. I have loved owning this car. It is beautiful, it is fun, it turns heads wherever it goes. It's been a wonderful car. But now that I have this one is going to go to a new home. This one, now that it's running, I'm going to start doing the restoration pretty soon. Strip off all the graphics. You can see this green is horribly faded, which is why it looks so much better filming and taking pictures from this side. How cool is that, man? So awesome. So anyway, guys, those are just a few things to look for whenever you're buying a race car. Is it a show car? Is it a race car? I hope I've given you a few pointers of what to look for. If you ever see an ad and it's a race car, but it's, I don't know, 10 hours away, you can't go look at it. One of the first things I always ask them, depending on the year of the car, take a magnet and see if it'll stick to the door where the number is on the door. That way you know if it's a steel body car or a fiberglass car. Because a fiberglass car is either going to be a show car or it's going to be a school car. Some of the bodies that they put on them in the racing schools are, again, fiberglass just for durability purpose and probably cost and ease of, you know, installation and upkeep and stuff like that. But yeah, those are some of the things to look out for. Just little things on the body, little things on the engine, little things on the inside. That's the difference. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at these beautiful cars with me. I'm so blessed to be able to own these things and do what I do. I love it. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll have some more good stuff coming up soon. Take care.